All right, well, here we are. Here we are. The Cincinnati Bengals are 1-4. You're in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. Not the happiest of times this week for Bengals fans, but I feel pretty good about things. I genuinely believe, and I've caught some flack for this, but I genuinely believe that a winning streak starts this week in primetime in the city that never sleeps. Well, the state that's next to the city that never sleeps. They play in New Jersey. It's annoying, but whatever. I love the skyline shots of Manhattan. It'll be good. I'm going to talk you guys off a ledge as well, okay? Things are going to be all right. I don't know if they're going to be all right, but they're going to be better than they seem right now. You're in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. I might have said that already. I'm not sure. I'm all hopped up. It's a Friday morning. I'm ready to rock and roll. We're going to do this show, and we're going to feel better when we're done with it. I got some fun stats on Jamar today. We will get back to the actual game predictions. No more tomfoolery with that. I'm done with that. It didn't really work out last week anyways. It really only worked out against the hapless Panthers. So we'll not worry about that. But let's start here. Let's start where we always have to start the conversation with this team right now, and that's with the defense. So they're not good. You may have noticed that. You may have noticed that they are not very good at stopping the opponent from scoring points. Not ideal, but they're also not as historically, or I don't know if that's the word, they're not quite as terrible as a lot of people are making them out to be. Not good, but we've got to have some context. So let's get into that context a little bit. And I think the biggest piece of context is when you look at their last two losses, Baltimore and Washington. You may have noticed both are pretty good on offense. Both have MVP candidates at quarterback. They are the top two scoring offenses in the National Football League. Washington, number one at 31 points a game, 31 points a game for the Commanders. Baltimore averaging 29.4 points per game. So again, do the Bengals kind of stink on defense? Yes. But do we need to look and maybe say, okay, they've played the top two offenses in the NFL through 5 weeks. So yeah, they're not great, but they're not going to go out and give up 40 every week. Remember, New England stinks, but they still only gave up 16. They've got more stinky teams on their schedule. The Chiefs having a down year on offense, but the Bengals still only allowed that offense to score 19 points. And then Carolina, 24 points. If the Bengals can hold people to 24 or less, they're going to win like most of the rest of their games. They've got 12 left. If they hold every other team to 24 or less, and I know that seems like a big ask, and I don't think they'll do that, but they're going to go like 11-1 in those. Bengals are giving up 29 points per game, okay? That number will go down as the year goes on. They held a defensive players-only meeting this week. They're feeling, hopefully, like they need to take a little more command. They're surely embarrassed. They hear all this stuff. This is a group of veterans. This is a group, pretty much everyone on this defense has seen some pretty big success in the NFL. That number, 29 points per game, I promise you, will go down as the year goes on. It has to. You look at who they've got coming up, and we'll get into Daniel Jones and the Giants here in a minute. It will get better, is what I'm saying. Again, I'm not sitting here trying to tell you and be Johnny Homer, tell you the Bengals defense is good, but they're not as terrible as we all think right now. They're playing the top two offenses in the league in their last two losses, and yes, it's looked bad, and yes, it's unacceptable, and yes, that won't work come January, but they've got time. It's October. They've got time to figure things out, to fix things. Remember that Super Bowl run, how bad Eli Apple was, and then it's like a light went on after the bye week? That's not the only case of that happening. Guys figure things out as the season goes on. These are the top guys at their profession. Now, I'm not saying all of them will, but Cam Taylor-Britt, don't sell your stock. He is going to figure this thing out. Sheldon Rankins might be back Sunday. If not, probably the next Sunday. The rookies on the defensive line, they are going to get better. Jordan Battle getting more snaps, letting Von Bell rest up a little bit. Maybe he can play more of a, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Quality over quantity for Von Bell. For all these guys. Sam Hubbard, you can say the same thing. I said that if you tuned in before the season started. I said, hey, this defense is kind of getting old. Yeah, it looks like it. So I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that the Bengals are going to go out there and be the 85 Bears on defense, but they're going to be better than they are. Can't be a whole lot worse, and also the competition's going to get easier. Simple as that. So, again, don't jump off the ledge just yet. Stay on the bandwagon a little longer, and we'll get to that more later on. But you take away the top two offenses that they've played in their last two losses, and the Bengals, I just went over it, 16, 19, 24. And even with the 24 in Carolina, 3 of those came off an interception that gave the Panthers the ball like at midfield. So yeah, those are more the style offenses the Bengals are going to see, more in the middle. Like 24, let's look. Let's see what the average, who's right in the middle as far as points per game. So I told you that the Commanders are 2, the Commanders are 1, Baltimore's 2. So right in the middle is the Chicago Bears, averaging 22.6 per game. That's the average, okay? So no one in the AFC North. I mentioned Baltimore's 2. The Bengals are 4. They're scoring 28 a game. Like, Browns are third to last. Browns averaging 15.8 a game. Steelers are in the bottom 10, 18 a game. That's 4 divisional games. Bengals still have the Raiders. I mean, they still have the Chargers, who are magically 5th to last. I don't know what's going on there. And then there's the Giants, who are 6th to last in points per game. They're averaging 17.8 a game. I'm not trying to tell you that this defense is going to, out of nowhere, be great, but they will be. I don't know that they will be better, but they will seem better because the teams they have to play will get worse. And the hope is, because look, I don't think anyone's going to be happy with a one and done in the playoffs. But that allows you time. If you can win games, keep this train going, and get some hope, that allows time to fix things. And we've seen, as much as everyone's ripping on Lou Anarumo right now, we've seen him have the ability to figure things out on the fly. And that's what they're going to have to do. Simple as that. Not simple at all. But saying it out loud, it sounds very simple. So, yeah, don't get me wrong. They're not good. But they're also not going to give up 36 or 41 every week. They're probably going to give up, 30 and then give or take a field goal. If the Bengals can score 34 points every week, in which most weeks I think they probably will be able to, they're right in the thick of things. So their opponent this week, Brian Daboll, very good offensive coach, the head coach of the Giants. Daniel Jones, who kind of an odd career to this point, right? Sometimes looks very solid, got the big contract, sometimes it's not. Now, I saw from Jordan Schultz, who just joined Fox Sports on Twitter, in Daniel Jones' last 4 games, he's completed 68% of his passes, 952 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, 99.3 passer rating. Sounds pretty spooky, right? Is Danny Dimes coming back? Is he figuring it out? Well, again, like with the Bengals defense, there's got to be some context. Has Daniel Jones looked good recently? Yeah, he's looked pretty sharp. But that also comes against teams like the Bengals that rank in the bottom half of that points allowed, of the yards allowed. The last 3 games have came against teams for the Giants. They've played teams that are all in the bottom 11 in points allowed. I don't even have them pulled up here. They just beat the Seahawks the other day. And then I think it was the Commanders and the Browns. I mean, the Browns, you want to talk about a train wreck. I mean, because Cleveland kind of had some hopes for this year too. And they got nothing. So yeah, the last 3 for the Giants, Seahawks, Cowboys, Browns, all in the bottom 11 in points allowed. So those are not good defenses. And it's not, they're going to be fine. But this is, I guess what I'm getting at here is those numbers I gave you for Daniel Jones, they look great. But again, like with the Bengals defense, get a little context in there. They're not that good. They're fine. You're still in the NFL. But there's got to be context to all this. Kayvon Thibodeau, the defensive end, former Oregon Duck, not going to play. It looks like he's week to week with a wrist injury. Malik Neighbors was still in concussion protocol as of Thursday. I should have checked and seen what time their media availability was. But it seems like he might not play. It looks like he is kind of, right there behind Jaden Daniels for Rookie of the Year. And former LSU Tiger, we'll see. He already missed 1 game. He missed the Seahawks game with a concussion, and he, as of Thursday, was still in concussion protocol. So we'll keep an eye on that and see, where it goes. Obviously, you want these guys to be healthy, but at the same time, if he's not ready to play, the Bengals kind of need every break they can get. So we'll see what happens, but a couple of stars for the Giants not playing this week as the Bengals head to the Big Apple, as the locals like to call it. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm here to talk you off the ledge. I'm here to let you know that defense is not as bad as we might feel like. A winning streak starts now. I really do believe that. I mean, look, again, I've said this 1,000 times. The Bengals are 2 plays from being 3-2. 2 plays against the Chiefs and Ravens. A bad pass interference call and a botched field goal. And of course, there's context with those too, right? Zach Taylor moved the ball. But again, they're not a 1-4 team. They are a 1-4 team because that's what the record is. But they're not as bad as Cleveland, who is 1-4. I'm sure I'm not even going to look at what the other 1-4 teams are. But there is no reason to believe it's a long season. 17 freaking games. You've only got 5 down. You're not even a third of the way through. You will be after this week. But there's no reason to believe that come December, the Bengals shouldn't be in the mix for a playoff spot. What you really got to hope for right now is the Bengals do what you expect them to do, and Baltimore doesn't go on some crazy streak where they win 9 of 11. That's where we're at. There's no reason to believe the Bengals won't be in the mix for a playoff spot come December. They're a really good team. They are. Oh, they're a really good offense with a less than great defense, but still, they're in better position. I mean, you look at the Vegas numbers. I think Vegas has them at plus 120 to still make the playoffs. That tells you what you need to know. Vegas believes they're probably going to be in. I should have looked at the other teams around them. I didn't. Who cares? If you bet a little bit, they pretty much are saying, yeah, we don't want to give you too much because we think the Bengals are as capable of anyone as making a run. They're there. They're there. And I understand people's frustrations. I mean, you think the Bengals want to be in this position either? They're right there. They just got to get rolling. And I'll tell you what else. If they do get rolling, this 1-4 start, they're going to remember that. They're going to remember saying, they'll play with a chip on their shoulder. They'll talk about how people counted them out. They'll come out a little feistier than maybe they would have if they started 2-3 or 3-2. If they get hot, man, look out. Do not let the Cincinnati Bengals get hot. You saw what happened when the Bengal Cats up in Michigan got hot. They're a game away now from the ALCS. No good. That was not a good comparison. Just was on the brain. But the Bengals next 4. So Giants on Sunday night. Then they go to Cleveland, who they've had trouble with. But there's so many variables to that. A lot of those games, like the Bengals either didn't have Burrow or they rest because they played the last game of the season. Browns fans like to throw out their record against Burrow. I don't even know what it is. Cool. We'll see what happens next week with your boy Deshaun and Burrow finally playing like an actual game head-to-head. I think the only one they did in Cincinnati, the Bengals beat them by 2 scores. We'll let Browns fans worry about Browns fans. But the Giants, the Browns, the Eagles, who people kind of talk up a little bit, they're not anything special. I know they made the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Their head coach might be the next one fired in the league. And then the Raiders. So I'm telling you, man, 5-4 is not out of the question. You get there. You keep it rolling. You go into Baltimore with a winning record on a Thursday night game, and you're a little ticked off because of what happened last time, and you see what you can make happen. So I just believe that. I think the streak starts now. There's no reason for me not to believe that. Again, I get, because of everything I told you about the defense at the top, the Bengals go out and score 30-plus every week. The defense just gets slightly better. They drop that number of 29 points per game down to 27, 26. Which there's no reason to believe they won't. And things will be okay. Well, they'll be better. I do think they'll be okay. I'm trying so hard not to be like Mr. Rah-Rah here, because I'm not that guy at all. But, I say with the Boomer Esiason jersey behind me and the Bengals hat on, but if you followed me on this podcast, you followed me on Twitter, you've seen any of my reporting back when I was a young dork reporter, I'm not that guy. The first time when I was with WLWT in Cincinnati, we had to predict the Broncos-Bengals game. It was a Monday night game. Bengals fans will all remember it because Drake Kirkpatrick picked off Peyton Manning for like a 99-yard pick six. And the Bengals at that point had been awful in primetime games. And maybe one of my biggest regrets was, if you're a young reporter out there listening to this, if you're on the fence, just go with the home team. If you're in a market, go with the home team. Don't try to be Mr. Johnny. I picked the Broncos idiotically. And I truly believe that. But looking back, looking back when you're the new guy in town and you've got no clout, a little better just to get the home fans on your side. So again, I'm not Mr. Rah-Rah Bengals. I've proven that time and time again, but I do genuinely believe what I'm saying here. There's a few of you who actually know me who listen to this. This is how I feel. And I don't BS you. You can go back and listen after the podcast is still up from the game after Joe's rookie season when he got hurt. I was ready to burn the franchise down. Okay. I'm just trying to convince you. I'm not telling you that the Bengals are going to go on a 12-game winning streak. What I am telling you is they are going to be good enough to get themselves in the mix so that when we eat that Thanksgiving turkey and we go into whatever the next game is after that, the Bengals will be in the mix. They might be, who knows what will happen. There's a ton that can happen over the next few months, but there's no reason, even with the current Bengals team, there is no reason for me to believe they will not be in position come December to, at a minimum, get one of the higher wild card spots. And if they can get hot, if they can win in Baltimore next month, no reason to believe they can't be in the mix for the division. Maybe I'm a little too optimistic. Maybe I'm soft in my old age. Maybe being a dad with a pink dollhouse behind me has made me, a little easier going. But I believe it. We'll see what happens. And look, my other thing is, too, I sit here and talk about a streak. Don't focus on it too much. Don't waste too much of your energy like me. Learn from my mistakes. Don't be thinking about the Ravens in 5 weeks. Enjoy this. Because right now, the Bengals have probably the best quarterback we're going to see in our lifetimes playing in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow leads the league in touchdown passes. He's second in quarterback rating, second in completion percentage. If they get hot, if they can win the division, he's going to be in the MVP mix. And I know it sounds crazy to say win the division right now, but crazier things have happened. Like Burrow, Lamar has an injury history. If he were to get banged up and miss a month, and I by no means want that to happen, but these are just like Burrow, he gets dinged up. So, kick back. He's on pace to throw 38 touchdowns, which would be a franchise record. Enjoy what's in front of us. As frustrating as it is, you got Cleveland fans right now at 1-4. They're done. I talked Sunday before the game started. I mean, they were absolutely just kind of like, at 1-3 they were done. Bengals fans, I don't think any of us feel that way. And rightfully so. So, enjoy it, man. We've got a few games here where the Bengals have a real shot to get back headed toward where they want to be. They're not going to get where they want to be in 1 week, but I think things are going to be all right. Just kind of enjoy the ride. Take it one game at a time, to do some coach speak. And that's not what we're going to do here. But during that 3 hours when they're on the field, when they're off the field, you can complain and you can say, if you would have did that in Kansas City, if you would have did that against New England. But for now, just kind of enjoy the ride, because I really think this next month is going to be fun. The record won't be fun, but the individual games, I think it's going to feel good to be a Bengals fan again. I think people are going to start believing again. I really do believe that. Some people pointed out in 2012 that the Bengals started 3-4 and ended up with a wild card berth. Obviously, much different teams, but yeah, these things happen. It's not all that uncommon. You just got to get hot. And by the way, I went back and looked. 2012, Bengals started 3-4, got a wild card berth. Their defense, 25th that year in points allowed. So it's not crazy to have. I mean, Drew Brees did it for years. Peyton Manning did it for years. Their defenses sucked. They were awful, always in the bottom third of the league. But they found ways to win because they had a great quarterback and they had excellent receivers. And they won a lot of games 37-30. That's what the Bengals are going to have to do. This is not unprecedented territory. This is not nothing that's never been done in the National Football League before. There's no reason to believe with this quarterback and those receivers that this team can't make the climb back up the hill. So that's where we're at. I feel good. And what else are you going to do? You're going to sit around and mope? I guess you can if you want, but isn't this why we watch sports? I mean, if you're a Bengals fan, you've been through a hell of a lot worse than this. We've gone into seasons where there was no hope. I wore an Achilles Smith jersey to school in 3rd grade. You think that was fun? You think I felt good about that? We've been through worse than this. Now, of course, the downside of that is you say if they do, because it's possible, things I sit here, I thought there was to sit in this exact chair and said there's no way they lose against the Commanders unless Jaden Daniels has some sort of insane game. Of course, he did. So crazier things have happened. Could the Bengals lose one of the next two or both of the next two? Absolutely. Crazy, terrible things would happen, and then you would say they wasted a year of Joe Burrow's career, a year of Jamar's career, probably the last year with T. Higgins, and it would be infuriating. But the flip side of that is you have those guys, and we know what they're capable of. We just saw it. I mean, that receiving duo on Sunday, get out of town. Absolutely torch the Ravens. You put up 38 points against the Ravens again next month, you're probably going to win the game. But I feel good. Really do. Out of the jungle this week, we're all, speaking of the Commanders, so there was a report out that we're into flex scheduling now, and NBC tried to get Ravens Commanders to be the primetime game. And if you're unfamiliar with the rules, so how the flex works, CBS and Fox can both protect one game each week. So they can say, no, you can't take that game. CBS selected Baltimore and Washington. So NBC tried to take it. CBS said no. So Bengals, Giants, it will be in primetime. I would have preferred, I always want the Bengals to play in the afternoon. I'm an old man. I don't like to stay up late. But so we're all Commanders fans now. They just beat Cleveland last week. They still have Baltimore and Pittsburgh to go. So hopefully the Commanders can stay hot and knock the Ravens back down off their pedestal, get them back to 3-3, and go from there. That's a 1 o'clock game on CBS. At 1 o'clock on Fox, you've got the Browns going to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. I mean, this could be, you kind of hope for a Browns, drubbing out there. They drop to 1-5, and hopefully they are just down in the dumps. I mean, Kevin Stefanski's getting questions during the week about, is Deshaun Watson your $700 million quarterback? It's not actually that much. Is he the guy going forward? You've got Joe Flacco balling out. Browns fans are mad about that. You kind of, at this point with Cleveland, just step on the throat, man. You just hope that they absolutely go down a hole they cannot dig themselves out of. They're just about there. So, again, the Bengals need every break they can get right now. If you can get the Browns in a situation where they're just kind of, the locker room is gone already in week 6, wouldn't be mad about it. And the Pittsburgh Steelers go to Las Vegas, Nevada, 4 o'clock game. So really a good chance to watch everyone in the AFC North if you're into that sort of thing. Yeah, that's where we're at. And, with Vegas, you don't really know what you're going to get out of them seemingly every week. And kind of the same with the Steelers. The Steelers at 3-2 now, they could drop to 500. Really, we could have a situation after this week where no one in the AFC North has a winning record. Wouldn't that be nice if the Bengals have 2 wins instead of 1? But we're totally at the point now where NFC versus AFC, you got to be hardcore rooting for the NFC teams. You're always that way, but especially with the Bengals already kind of grasping at straws here. So another good opportunity for them to gain some ground, and they're going to have to try and do that all year. Will they be able to? That's obviously the big question, and if you've listened to the last 20 minutes, I think I think that they can. My bet of the week, I already threw some money down on this one last week. So last week I had a 2-game streak going. Again, I don't do the lines. If you're new here, I don't tell you, Bengals, they're minus 3.5. They are favored on the road, which again tells you what Vegas thinks about this team. They also think they're pretty good. Road teams in primetime, typically not favored, but Cincinnati getting a field goal and a half is pretty good, or a field goal and a point and a half. You get what I'm saying. 3.5 freaking points. I need to learn to speak. At any rate, the bet that I placed on this week, I only do the player props when it comes to the Bengals. Jamar Chase, ESPN bet has him at over under 79.5 receiving yards. I took the over. He's at 85 or more and 3+. The Bengals are going to lean on Jamar, as they should. When he had 12 targets last week, he's kind of proven now 2 weeks in a row, not that he didn't know it before, but Zach Taylor's even mentioned, we need to just get the ball in his hands and let him go. I mean, he's had 2 touchdowns the last 2 weeks that were, for every other receiver in the NFL, or at least all but about 2 or 3, they were 12-yard gains or a 5-yard gain. He turned them into touchdowns of 60+. He's a machine. He's on a different planet. He's a freaking robot. Get the ball in his hands. Give me the over 79.5 yards. He'll go, who knows what he'll go for. But Jamar in prime time in the biggest market in the country, you know he's going to come and ball out. So give me that. And I also looked up, if Jamar gets one more touchdown, which he obviously will, but if he gets a touchdown this week, he will be in the top 10 with his 35th or 36th receiving touchdown for the Bengals. He'll crack the top 10 list for Cincinnati. Every other guy in the top 10 had 100 or more games for the Bengals. Sunday will be Jamar's 51st career game in stripes. So all those other guys needed 100 more to get into the top 10. To stay there anyways, Jamar's going to get there in his 51st, maybe 52nd game if he doesn't score this week. Just pretty incredible. When he came into the league, he said, I'm going to break every record they have. Yep, looks like you are, Chief. So good on that, like that. My prediction, so I started out bad with the predictions and got a little goofy with them. I'm going to get back to serious. I'm going to actually look at numbers and try to figure these things out. It's hard to predict. I do this, all the time. I think I've got like 2 or 3 on the nose ever, including the 2021 AFC Championship game, by the way. But this week, I like the Bengals to win 31-24. I think maybe I'm shooting a little low on the Bengals point side of thing, but, the Giants kind of have some dudes on that defensive line, and they're at home in primetime. They're going to come to play. They did just come off a big emotional win in Seattle, having to travel back across the country. But I think, 31-24. And if the Bengals hold teams under 30, they're going to win far more often than not. So I like Cincinnati 31-24 this week. And I'll probably nail that one. Honestly, it'll probably be exactly that. So bet what you want on that. And then one for the road as we close this one up. One of my pals who I know is listening to this show told me he's not going to watch on Sunday. He's a busy guy, owns a successful business, got kids and a wife. And I saw a lot of the same thing on Twitter with people. I had dozens of replies. And not 25, like 50, telling me, the Bengals probably go 1-. I made the comment they could go 5-4, and they said they could just as easily go 1-8. If you want to jump off the bandwagon right now, go ahead. You can come back. It's okay. If you've been around this long, no one's going to stop you. But at the same time, if you're going to give up, now is not the time to do it. When you just went against arguably the hottest team in the NFL, went to overtime, you just got to win on the road in Carolina. I know it wasn't pretty, but now is not. If you're going to give up on this team, go ahead. I understand 3 hours is a lot of time to dedicate on Sundays. I'm as busy as anyone. Not anyone, but a lot of people. 3 hours is a lot of time to dedicate. But by the time you're done with it, it's 4 hours. But if you've been around this long, kind of mentioned this earlier, you've been through worse than this as a Bengals fan, have you not? You stuck around for the 90s and the early 2000s, and then all the drama and the disappointment and the playoff wins that Carson Palmer never brought and the playoff wins that Marvin never brought and Andy Dalton never brought. And now the Bengals have won 5 playoff games in the last, 4 years? They've had 3 consecutive winning seasons. Now's not the time to jump off. If you want to, go ahead. No one's going to stop you. And no one's going to stop you when you hop back on. But you're telling me now's the time you get out? Now? With an MVP caliber quarterback with the best receiving duo probably in the NFL? Come on. These ain't the Bengals, man. Yeah, they don't look good right now, but now is the time to hop back on. Now is the time to repeat what you heard on this podcast to your buddies and tell them, things are going to get hot. And then a month from now you say, told you. You don't have to cite me. You don't have to say, I heard it on the In the Jungle podcast with Matt Edwards. You can make it up. Act like you looked these stats up. Act like you came up with these hot takes. That's fine. Stay on. Don't jump yet. Don't hold that stock. Don't sell just yet, man. I'm telling you. I am telling you, I've been watching football my whole life. I don't know if it makes me an expert, but I know enough to know when things are better than they seem, and right now is one of those times. And I know it's hard to say that at 1-4, and maybe I am just getting a little too soft. I'm closer to 40 now than 30, aren't I? Just barely, just by a month. You know how old men are with our Werther's Originals, hanging out, watching soap operas, drinking tea. Maybe I've lost my edge, but I think things are going to be okay, and I think you got to stay on the bandwagon. So that's that. Appreciate you being on the bandwagon for this show. Love doing it. Love getting the feedback, even the bad on the YouTube comments. Shout out to Ravens fans. Love seeing you. Love you jacking those view counts up. Feels good. So if you like it, give it a rating. If you don't, go listen to another Spotify podcast. I don't care. An Apple podcast, whatever you want. And if you like it on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. I don't really know why. I just hear people who are good at YouTube say that's good for the show. So that's a lot of fun. You can do youtube.com/@ the little @ in the jungle pod. That's where you can find us. If you want to find me on Twitter and yell at me, I am at Matt Edwards. We'll have a lot of fun there. So we'll do it again this Monday morning, I guess, because I'm not doing the late night podcast again. Maybe I will. We'll see. Either way, it'll be out Monday morning. So we'll go from there. Appreciate you tuning in. You are listening to In the Jungle. We will see you again Monday morning when the Bengals have the first win of their long winning streak that's set to come.